Ryan Fleming can help you chart out a course for your retirement with his intimate knowledge of financial planning and the airline industry. It's time for the Pilot's Advisor.
Welcome to another edition of the Pilot's Advisor podcast. Special guest, Zach Smith from Pilot Tax, the CPA that we all work with for strategic tax planning. And Zach is going to be a figure on the show more often now. And the reason being, everybody wants to talk about taxes. It's the most exciting thing that anything we do, especially around March, April, it's tax time. But we find that we're getting the same questions over and over again. And so what Zach and I would like to do is ask those questions and actually create videos for you so you can get a perspective from the financial advisor and also get a perspective from the tax professional. Because Zach and I have these conversations often offline, and we think it's going to be valuable to answer those questions, and you can see both sides. So Zach, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. I think we're going to cover some really good stuff today. The question that I get all the time.
Well, great. We're going to, if there's questions that you get asked from your clients more than once, we're going to start covering them on the show. And the big one we decided to start with is the big softball question. Should I pay off that house? Should I make that extra payment on my house payment to pay it off? We're going to talk about the tax side and also the investment side. But Zach, we're going to start with you. Talk to us about the tax side. How do you see this?
So from the tax side, having home equity indebtedness nowadays almost doesn't help most people, right? We've got a huge standard deduction of $25,000. Having home equity indebtedness is not its tax strategy. Now, here's the important part. A lot of people that have mortgages right now got in at a pretty low interest rate. So now this is where you come in, Ryan. We got to look at the opportunity cost of that money and how inflation and things like that are affecting the strategy that we're using from tax and investment side.
Well, and this is where I come out. I look at my clients, and we're not that person that makes $60,000 a year, is in debt. We're trying to get out of debt. And what I refer to this as the Dave Ramsey client. So many of Dave Ramsey's principles I agree with, I get, but we're dealing with a different type of client here. And I don't look at home mortgage as bad debt. I look at it as an investment. And with interest rates the way they were, historic lows, and even now they're still historically low. There's two things to consider with this. Should you pay off that house? Should you make that extra payment? Yes, I do agree that it'll kick down some of the interest you pay over your lifetime. However, two things to consider. Can I take that money and get more than that 3 or 4% mortgage that you have? And over the long term, the answer should be all day long. Also, when you pay off your house, it becomes a dead asset that is not working for you. It's not liquid cash. You can't just tap into the home equity simply unless you have like a home equity line of credit or something like that. And so I consider this, and just for ease of numbers, we're going to talk about $1 million property. Let's say your house is worth $1 million. It's totally paid off. Well, guess how much that's earning for you every single year? Well, nothing. It's a dead asset. Now consider this. If you had that same $1 million invested, and over the long term, let's say you made 8 or 10%, I'm going to use 10% simply because of the math. It makes it easy. 10% on $1 million is $100,000 that you make in 1 year. And oh, by the way, it compounds annually. So now you have 1.1 million working for you, and it compounds annually. So if you don't have that house paid off, that money is working for you. And in many cases, I talk about, isn't it better to know that you could press a button and pay off that house at any point in time to have that security, but let that money keep working for you. Keep using other people's money to leverage so you can build long-term wealth. Zach, you got a comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of the questions I get, especially from a lot of my pilots that are soon to be going into retirement, is, Zach, I'm scared of having a payment in retirement. Well, and it comes back to what you're saying, Ryan. If you've got $1 million property that's very likely at 3 or 3.5% interest on a fixed conventional mortgage, the market has historically returned far more than that. So I am not going to be your CPA that's afraid of debt. Now, I don't like the 9% car loans or the 18% credit card debt. That stuff doesn't make sense. But when you have fixed debt on an asset that you can utilize and grow, I will use the bank's money all day long at 3.5% to potentially grow 6 to 10, in the market over the long term.
Well, absolutely. And the bigger that snowball is that you build, that money that's working for you to build long-term wealth, the bigger the gain is. And I always talk about it takes people a long time to save up $1 million, but then they get to 2 million really, really quick. And it's just the power. Right. It's just the power of compounding interest. And one of the biggest mistakes I see as well is somebody will take a 15-year note instead of a 30-year mortgage because they get a little bit of that interest rate knocked off. And the problem with that is you just lost all your flexibility. Now, our pilots that are with legacy carriers, they're not going to be looking for other jobs. If everything goes well, this is the final job that they will ever have. But guess what? Life happens. And then you're locked into that larger payment no matter what. And you don't have any flexibility for your lifestyle. And let me give you an example, because I'm dealing with this with one of my clients right now that is not a pilot. So he was a CEO for a company. He has a ton of equity in his house. And suddenly he lost his job. He had 2 months of severance pay. And from a cash flow standpoint, he's in a bad spot. And he doesn't want to liquidate things. And suddenly he's been looking for jobs and hasn't been able to find a job. He's unemployed in this marketplace. And he's in a position where now he can't make his mortgage payments. Oh, he has a 15-year note that is bigger than what he had before. Well, even though he has $300,000 or $400,000 in home equity, he can't access it. He tried to apply for a home equity line of credit. Guess what? In this environment, because of interest rates going up, nobody wants to do a home equity line of credit, and he doesn't have a job now. So even though he has all this money tied up in his home and home equity, his options are to go default on his mortgage or to sell his house. And either of those is very, very stressful. Now imagine you had that $600,000 or whatever it is in a taxable investment account right now. You have all the flexibility in the world to do whatever you need to do. And suddenly it's not a stressful situation.
Hey, if you're ready to have clarity and thrive in your retirement, you're in the right place, and I've got another resource for you to check out. Go to retirepilots.com and look right there on the homepage. You'll be able to click Get My Free Toolkit. What this is going to do is help you get for free Ryan's Retirement Toolkit. This is going to include his 2 books, The Pilot's Advisor and Pilots Retire Early, revealing the 9 critical decisions when retiring and the 7 lessons to save your retirement. Not only does it include the books, but lots of other goodies packed into this free toolkit that'll be sent to you ASAP. It's a great starting place for any pilot to begin their retirement journey. Go to retirepilots.com.
No, and I agree, Ryan. And I know you and I have chatted a lot about this, but the taxable investment accounts can be a good strategy to give access to money when needed, so long as we're doing all the other tax advantageous things first. But I certainly agree. I tell all my clients, a lot of them are, I'm going to pay an extra $1,000 a month toward my mortgage. The first question is, what's your rate? Vast majority of the time, it's sub 3.5%. My advice is do not pay a penny towards that mortgage more than you have to. It just gives us so much more flexibility, keeps your fixed expenses low, and you're using the bank's money for this stuff.
Well, absolutely. And when you do that, you're locking that money in at 2.5% or 3% or whatever it is. And you're locking in at that percentage, and then it's a dead asset going forward versus leveraging your money, using other people's money to get rich and build long-term wealth. So the days of when we're talking about investing and not just buying things, the days of saving up your money and then paying cash, which is what we were taught before to be responsible people in society. We save up and buy it when we have the money. So we're not talking about credit cards and buying things. But what we're talking about is investing. Use your money, allow your money to be leveraged, create that arbitrage for long-term growth in your portfolio. And so we got to change our mindset to one of abundance and not of, scarcity. And I think this is one of the biggest things. I know some of the most successful people that I know out there, and we're talking about the ultra wealthy, they've even done a cash out refinance in this previous environment just to get more money out, and took out another 30-year loan at 3% and got all that money working for them somewhere else.
Right. Well, and what I've got to tell a lot of my clients to ease their mind is if you've got a loan on your home right now at 3.5%, even if that cash is sitting in the bank account or low interest bearing account, your interest rate is still beating inflation. You are still money ahead right now using the bank's money at a sub inflation rate. So why pay the bank back their money? It's one of those things that right now doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. And we don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I have a fantastic article that I send to almost every one of my prospects and clients. It's called Home Equity. It'll be in the show notes below, and reach out to me or Zach, and we can get that in your hands. It's about 4 to 5 pages, so even pilots can read it. It's not too complicated. Big red crayons, but it's a very good story talking about 2 brothers, one guy that paid his house off, the other guy that kept flexibility, invested his money. It's a fantastic story and really hits home with what we're talking about today, the age-old question, should I pay off my house? Zach, thanks for your time today. I know it's tax season.
Absolutely.
Your time is so valuable, so thank you for spending time with us. And I love that pullover. Let me know when mine's coming in the mail.
You just got a Pilot's Advisor on it. It'll be out tomorrow.
Sounds great, guys. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ryan.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.